Hey, welcome to my channel. Brad Wardle, call sign Captain Wingnut from Cougar Ridge Ranch, high in the Uinta Mountains of eastern Utah. What do you do with your pumpkin seeds at Halloween? You make these beautiful pumpkins. Here's my grandkids' pumpkins. Carter, Kyle, Cammie, and their dad, Greg. And they do some beautiful pumpkins. But what do you do with your seeds when you carve your pumpkins? I'm going to show you how to make a nutritious snack. It's easy. It's not gross. It's not bad at all. It's fast. You can have this done in about 40 minutes. And you save the seeds. You get to eat the seeds. You don't have to buy them in the store. Wonderful. And they're a nutritious, wonderful treat. A nice, clean snack for you and your kids. Normally, it looks terrible, looks icky. Most people throw the seeds away. I'm going to show you how to easily clean the seeds, how to easily salt the seeds, and how to easily roast the seeds, and then you can eat them. Okay, let's go get a pumpkin. Okay, so it's winter. It's after Thanksgiving. It's cold here. Well, we've got the pumpkins in the shed. Yeah, here we go. Here's the pumpkins. Light on so we can see. Yeah, this looks like a good one right here. Look at that baby. Oh, we just got a few. That's a behemoth. We'll do that one later. Alright, I'm going to grab this pumpkin and we'll get it to the kitchen and get the seeds out, and then I'm going to show you how we roast those babies. We live at the intersection of tranquility and ingenuity. For us, it's about living, not just surviving. Living is pleasure. Surviving is barely getting by 24/7, 365. Okay, here's our seeds. They're kind of gooey, yucky, ucky. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull some of this nasty stuff off. Just a little bit. I'm not going to really get too crazy with it because it's going to come off all by itself in the next operation. But the more that you can get off right now, the better it's going to be. So I'm just going to yank off some of these pumpkin seeds, and oh, those are plump. Yeah, those are going to taste good. The seed pulp starts to rot pretty fast as soon as you take them out of the pumpkin. Don't worry about that. It'll all be sterilized from the next step. Okay, there's the seeds ready to go. You can still see there's some pulp in there. I'm not going to worry about that. The next step will take it right out. In fact, if you don't want to do this step, this is kind of a gooey step, you can just move on to the next step, and the boiling will take it right off. It'll be a little messy in your strainer, but it will come off. So let's get on to that. Okay, what we're going to do next is we're going to put the seeds in a pot. And we're going to put about a tablespoon of salt, and this isn't a critical measurement. It's just about a tablespoon of salt per cup. There's about 2 cups in there, so I'm going to put a little extra. We like a little extra salt. It gets washed off. Then we're going to fill this up with water just over the top of the seeds. We're going to put it on the stove. We're going to bring this to a boil. And when this boils, then we're going to set our timer. Once it's boiling, we're going to set our timer for 10 minutes. And we're going to boil these seeds in this salt water for 10 minutes. Okay, so my battery died, but it just started to boil and it almost boiled over. So we're going to turn on the timer here. Set for 10 minutes. I'm going to boil these babies for 10 minutes and we're going to stir them. Probably have to adjust the heat so they don't want to boil over. Tone this thing down just a little bit. There we go. I'm also using iodized salt. Now, iodized salt sometimes will affect you. Don't use iodized salt when you're drying fish and doing other things, but in this case, these are going to be boiled and dry, roasted and dry. So the iodine, not going to do anything to it. And we need iodine, a little bit of iodine in our diet. That's why it's in the salt. So I sometimes use iodized salt for these. While this is cooking, I want to impart a little cowboy wisdom to you. When you're working on something and you come to a crossroads mentally, your first thought is usually right, so don't talk yourself out of it to do something different. That's what we call Occam's razor cowboy style. If the plain sense makes sense, don't look for any other sense. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to pour the seeds through a strainer into a container so that we can save the salt water. We were going to use the salt water for something else in just a minute. I'll put a little water in the pan here and just put that through them. Set the pan aside. And what we're going to do is we're just going to turn on the cold water through the... If you can see the yellow coming out in the sink, that's all of the gook that was on the seeds. And the seeds are clean. There's junk in the strainer, but the seeds are clean. Now what we're going to do, we're going to put the seeds back in the pan. We're going to put the salt water back in the pan. And we're going to boil it for 1 more minute. Now if you really want your seeds salty, this is where you would add more salt. You would make the water really salty for this last minute. This is not going to put a lot of salt inside. That came from the 10 minutes of boiling. This is going to make them salty on the outside. While this is happening for the next 30 seconds, we're going to turn the oven on to 400. I'll wash out my strainer. Wash out my bowl. There's our 1 minute. Not quite boiling. It doesn't really have to boil. They just have to be in that salty water for about another minute with high heat. So now I'm going to take these off the heat and I'm going to strain them again. And this time we're not going to rinse them off. We're just going to strain them. We're going to let them drain in the strainer here for a few minutes. We'll shake them a little bit so we get as much of that off of them as possible. While that's happening, I'm going to wash up the pan. We're going to use the pan again. This time we want a clean pan. Let the pan drain for just a moment. Oops. Looks like I got some seeds down here. It doesn't matter. I'm going to pour this salty water out. We don't need that salty water anymore, but we're not going to rinse these. Remember, you don't rinse them on the second time through. You just let them stay in this salty brine. Now, if you don't prefer them to be terribly salty on the outside, you can rinse them just a little bit just to rinse a little of the exterior salt off. And if you feel them, they're going to be a little bit slimy. That's the salt. Don't worry about that. It'll all go away when you bake them. Okay, now we're going to put them back in the pan again. And this time we're going to add some olive oil. And we're going to add about 1 to 2 tablespoons per cup of nuts, seeds. And I don't really do any strategic measuring, because they're going to be back in the strainer and we're going to strain off all of that. But we're just going to get them all coated with this. And I'm going to put them back in the strainer and let them strain off what little extra olive oil they may have. I'm knocking them all over here. Sink is clean. It was just cleaned with Clorox, so nothing wrong with that. Whoops, in there it went. Escapees. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to let that set for just a moment, and while that's setting, we're going to get our pan ready. Now, I usually put parchment paper down on the cookie sheet. You can oil the cookie sheet and do it straight on the cookie sheet, but then you've got to deal with cleaning the cookie sheet. So I just put down parchment paper on the cookie sheet. And then we're going to dump these seeds right on that. Then we're going to spread them around so that they're all spread around really good. There's a bad one right there. We'll get rid of that. Yeah, look at that. You're surprised on a big pumpkin how few seeds it really has once you get them all cleaned. We eat these up in a heartbeat. Okay, when they're spread around like that, we're going to put them in the oven. The preheated oven at 400. And we're going to set the timer. I like to set my timer for about 35 minutes. Start 35 minutes in the oven. Now, if you want them lightly roasted, bake them 15 to 20 minutes. If you like them a little more roasted, bake them 20 to 35 minutes. And if you want them heavily roasted, bake them 40 minutes. Now, the secret to this is be by your oven at about 30 minutes. And depending on the heat of your oven, if these babies are getting done, they're going to start popping like popcorn. And so you want to be attuned to the sound coming from your oven. Sometimes I'll wait until I hear the first pop and then I take them out and they're roasted just perfect for us. But if they're really popping, they're going to be heavily roasted. They're going to be really brown inside. So you're going to have to play with this a little bit and see where you like them. Hopefully you've got a bunch of pumpkins from Halloween that you can have the seeds. If you're going to keep your seeds from Halloween, I suggest you clean them and get them, and even just let them get dry, because they'll want to go. The fibers around them will want to go rotten, so that the seeds can germinate and grow more pumpkins. And so the best thing, if you're not going to get to roasting them the same day, is just get them clean and set them aside so that you don't get this big rotten mess. The rotten mess is very tolerable if you understand that it's going to come off of the seeds easier, but it's kind of gross to some people. Some people just don't like to have that nasty, gross. It can even be smelly. And so if you're having that nastiness and you don't like it, then just wash them off and set them aside, just to dry. Set them aside in the strainer. Just let them dry until you're ready to oil them and roast them. Boil them, oil them, and roast them. There you go. Okay, so we're going to stir these about every 5 minutes so that they get both sides. You can see they're already getting brown. They've been in about 15 minutes. So they're coming close to the end. They might go 35, but it depends on if they start popping. If they start popping, they're done. And they're looking pretty brown. I might just let them have another 5 minutes and pull them, because they're looking very, very, very nice and roasted. So we're going to let those go another 5 minutes, and we're going to pull them. So I put them back in the oven, just the oven is off, just to let the heat have it, so that they could just dry out, so that they're just really dry. And they're done. And so now I'll just put them in the... Oh no, I gotta go get another pumpkin. I'll put the recipe in the description and all of the information. Okay, so what I've found that works really, really, really well, if you have a food dehydrator, see if I can get up here without getting killed. I put them in the food dehydrator and leave them for 24 hours at about 140 degrees, and they come out just popcorn dry, perfect, just like you buy them in the stores. So if you have a food dehydrator, that is easier than the oven. The oven, you have to leave them in there for a long, long time in the heat, and these babies work really well. Also, if you do a lot, like I've done here, and as you go to store them after you've got them dry, throw a silicone gel pack in with them, just so that any moisture that might be in there will get absorbed by the gel pack and they won't mildew. Won't go rotten, won't go icky.
Special thanks to my grandkids, Carter, Kyle, and Cammie. They're the pumpkin carvers. Yeah, this year they carved the pumpkins with no stencils. That was the requirement, no stencils. Great job, kids. Thanks again to their dad, Greg, for all the great supervision and guidance. Thanks, guys, for letting me use your pumpkin pictures. Hey, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and leave comments or suggestions on the videos you'd like to see. Brad Wardle, Captain Wingnut, signing off.